Everyone thinks lighthouses are just buildings that hold a light. They're wrong. Out in the waters off the coast of Cornwall, England, there sits a structure that has endured what few human creations ever have: the relentless, grinding assault of the Atlantic Ocean itself. The Eddystone Lighthouse stands on a rocky outcropping so small, so exposed, that the sea has spent centuries trying to reclaim it. And yet, night after night, for more than 300 years, a light has burned there, a quiet vigil that has saved countless lives without fanfare, without recognition, simply by refusing to go dark. The story begins in the late 1600s, when seafaring was not a profession for the faint of heart. Ships navigating the English Channel faced an enemy more formidable than pirates or storms alone: the Eddystone rocks themselves, a jagged cluster of stone barely breaking the surface at high tide. Dozens of vessels found their final resting place there, splintered and sunk, their crews lost to waters that offered no mercy. In 1696, a man named Henry Winstanley stood on those rocks and imagined something radical: a lighthouse so sturdy, so ingeniously anchored, that it could withstand anything the ocean threw at it. He had no modern tools, no electric lights, no radio communication. What he had was determination and an almost stubborn refusal to accept that the sea's dominion was absolute. Winstanley's first lighthouse, completed in 1698, was a marvel of timber and ingenuity. It rose from the rocks like a defiant wooden tower, its light visible for miles across the dark water. Ships began to pass safely. The rocks that had claimed so many began to claim fewer, but Winstanley himself did not know, as he stood on his creation in November of 1703, that the greatest storm in living memory was gathering just beyond the horizon. November 26, 1703. The storm arrived with apocalyptic fury. The wind screamed with a voice that witnesses on land would describe in their diaries as something between thunder and the wrath of God itself. Winstanley and 5 men were on the lighthouse that night. They did not know it would be their last. By morning, the lighthouse was gone. Completely gone. The structure Winstanley had built to defy the sea had been erased from the rocks entirely, as if it had never existed at all, and Winstanley with it. The only record of his final moments is what we imagine from the wreckage: a man confronting forces so overwhelming that even his courage could not save him. But the sea's victory was temporary. In 1709, another lighthouse rose on those same rocks. This one was built of stone, anchored with iron, designed by a man named John Rudyard, who had learned from Winstanley's fate. It stood for nearly a century before it, too, burned to the ground in 1755, not destroyed by the sea, but consumed by fire while standing safely above it. In 1759, a third lighthouse was built, this one designed by an engineer named John Smeaton. Smeaton had studied the failures before him. He understood that the sea did not simply attack from one direction, it attacked from all directions at once, with pressure and weight that could crush anything not perfectly balanced, perfectly anchored, perfectly designed. Smeaton's lighthouse was a triumph. It stood for 127 years, a span of time that allowed entire generations of sailors to pass safely through those waters. Children were born, grew old, and died knowing that light burned on the rocks. It became so familiar, so reliable, that people stopped thinking of it as remarkable. It simply was a constant, a given, a promise kept in the darkness. But stone, like wood, eventually surrenders to time and tide. By the 1880s, Smeaton's lighthouse was showing its age. The rock beneath it, worn smooth by centuries of waves, was beginning to give way. Engineers realized that the entire structure would need to be replaced, not because it had failed, but because it had succeeded so completely that it had lasted longer than anyone had predicted. In 1882, construction began on a fourth lighthouse. This one was built of granite, massive blocks fitted together with such precision that there were no mortar joints. The stone itself held the structure together through sheer weight and geometry. It rose on the same rocks where Winstanley had stood nearly 2 centuries earlier. This fourth lighthouse, completed in 1884, is the one that stands today. It has weathered storms that would have seemed impossible to earlier generations. It has endured through 2 world wars, through the age of steam and the age of electricity, through the invention of radio and radar and GPS. And still, the light burns. What is remarkable about the Eddystone Lighthouse is not any single moment of drama, though there have been many. What is remarkable is the quietness of its service. No fanfare, no recognition, just a light, turning through the night, keeping watch over waters that would swallow the careless and the unlucky without hesitation. The keepers who lived in those towers, sometimes for months at a time, understood this. They knew they were part of something larger than themselves, a chain of light stretching back to Winstanley's wooden tower, forward into a future they would never see. They tended the light as if it were a living thing, because in a way, it was. Today, the light is automated. No keepers live on the rocks anymore. Machines tend the beam, computers monitor the systems, and the human presence has withdrawn. Yet the vigil continues, as steady as it was when human hands climbed the spiral stairs each evening to light the flame. Sailors today may never think of the Eddystone Lighthouse. Their ships have GPS, radar, sophisticated navigation systems that would seem like magic to anyone from a century ago. And yet, on certain nights when the electronic systems fail, when the storm is fierce enough to blind the instruments, that old light still turns, still keeps watch, still refuses to let the sea claim what belongs to the living. The Eddystone Lighthouse stands as a monument not to human triumph, but to human persistence. It is a reminder that some vigils are kept not with glory or recognition, but simply because they matter. Night after night, for more than 300 years, in storms and in calm, in the age of candles and the age of electricity, a light has burned on those rocks. And somewhere, someone is safer because it does. Subscribe so you don't miss the next quiet story of human resilience. New episodes every week.